What if everyone around you believed you were going to fail? Your classmates laugh at you. Teachers stop expecting anything from you. Even you begin to believe that maybe they're right. This was the reality for a quiet student named Daniel. Every exam he failed, every mistake he made, only convinced people more that he would never succeed. But one day, something unexpected happened. One teacher noticed something that nobody else could see. A small moment, a simple conversation, and a little belief. Years later, the same student everyone doubted would stand in front of hundreds of people as a success story. But how did that happen? Stay with us, because what happens next in this unbelievable story will leave you completely speechless. Before we start, hit like, share, and subscribe, and drop in the comments where in the world are you watching from. Daniel was the kind of student most teachers barely noticed. Every day he quietly walked into the classroom, took the same seat in the back corner, and kept his head down. He hoped that if he stayed quiet enough, no one would ask him a question. School had always been difficult for him. Reading took longer than it did for others, and math problems often left him confused. While the rest of the class finished their work quickly, Daniel was still trying to understand the first question. Some classmates started whispering about him. A few even laughed, calling him the slow kid. Hearing those words again and again slowly changed something inside him. Eventually, Daniel stopped believing in himself. One afternoon, the class received their exam results. Papers were passed across the desks while students leaned toward each other, excited to compare their scores. Some smiled proudly. Others celebrated quietly. Daniel slowly turned his paper over. The moment he saw it, his heart dropped. A large red F stared back at him from the top of the page. Before he could hide it, the student sitting beside him noticed. "Another fail?" he said with a small laugh. A few nearby students looked over and chuckled. Daniel kept his eyes on the desk, pretending not to hear them, but inside, the words hurt more than the grade itself. For the first time, Daniel wondered if everyone was right about him. After that day, something inside Daniel quietly changed. He still came to school every morning, but his motivation slowly disappeared. Homework stayed unfinished in his bag, and assignments were often left blank. Sitting in class, he stared at the board but rarely followed what was being taught. It wasn't that Daniel didn't care anymore. The truth was much deeper than that. He simply believed trying wouldn't make any difference. Some teachers stopped calling on him because they expected the same result. Classmates rarely included him in group activities. Little by little, Daniel became invisible in the classroom. And when a student begins believing they cannot succeed, even the smallest challenge starts to feel impossible. Most teachers had already formed their opinion about Daniel. To them, he was simply another struggling student who would probably never catch up. But one teacher noticed something different. Her name was Mrs. Thompson. While others focused on the top students in the class, she quietly observed the ones who struggled the most. And Daniel caught her attention. She noticed that even when he didn't understand the lesson, he kept trying longer than anyone else. He erased answers again and again, searching for the right one. That effort told her something important. One afternoon after class, she gently stopped him at the door. "Daniel," she said softly, "can you stay for a minute?" Daniel slowly walked back to his desk, unsure of what was about to happen. He thought maybe he had done something wrong. Maybe the teacher wanted to talk about his poor grades again. But Mrs. Thompson simply placed a small book on the desk between them. Then she said something Daniel had never heard before. "Daniel, I think you're much smarter than you believe." He looked up in surprise. No teacher had ever said those words to him. She explained that struggling didn't mean he wasn't capable. It only meant he needed more practice and patience. Then she gave him a simple challenge. "Read this for 20 minutes every day," she said gently. At first, Daniel struggled to get through the book. Each sentence felt heavy, and he often had to reread paragraphs several times. It was exhausting, and some days he wanted to give up. But Mrs. Thompson checked on him every day. She never criticized his mistakes. Instead, she praised every small effort. "You read that paragraph so well today," she would say. "You remembered a word you struggled with yesterday. That's progress." Slowly, Daniel began noticing the changes himself. Reading became easier. Understanding grew. Then one day, something remarkable happened. He raised his hand during class. The room went silent. For the first time, Daniel had an answer to share. That single moment changed everything for Daniel. Raising his hand wasn't just answering a question, it was proof that he could succeed. Slowly, he began participating more in class, speaking up when he had something to contribute. His grades improved little by little, but the biggest change was inside him. He started believing in himself again. The quiet, invisible boy was becoming someone who could try, fail, and try again without fear. Mrs. Thompson continued encouraging him at every step. Every small success mattered. Every effort was celebrated. Even some classmates who once laughed began noticing a difference. Daniel was no longer the slow student. He was starting to rise. Years passed, and Daniel graduated from school. Leaving behind the boy who once struggled to read a single paragraph, he continued studying, determined to improve, and eventually went to college. There, he discovered a deep interest in psychology and education. Wanting to understand why some students lose confidence while others thrive, every time he reflected on his journey, One memory stood out. Mrs. Thompson, the teacher who saw potential in him when no one else did. Her belief had shaped his path. Inspired by her, Daniel made a choice. He wanted to help others the way she helped him, becoming a mentor who could change lives. Years later, Daniel returned to his old school, but this time, he wasn't a struggling student. He had been invited as a guest speaker to share his journey with current students. The auditorium was packed with teachers and students, some of whom remembered the quiet boy from the back of the classroom when Daniel walked onto the stage. A few former classmates recognized him. They could hardly believe the confident man standing before them was the same student they once laughed at. He began telling his story, how he almost gave up, how he struggled, and how one teacher's belief changed everything. Then he pointed toward the audience. "It all started with someone who believed in me." Daniel looked across the audience, spotting Mrs. Thompson sitting in the front row. He smiled and thanked her, knowing her simple act of belief had changed his life forever. One conversation, one challenge, one teacher who refused to give up on him. Turning back to the students, he shared his message. To every student who feels like they're not good enough, don't give up on yourself. And to every teacher or mentor, your encouragement can change someone's entire future. He paused, letting the words sink in, because sometimes all it takes to change a life is one person who refuses to stop believing, and that one person can make all the difference.